Hello, I'm Shanahan. I'm here with Jay Nails, and we are commentating on this Dominion League Division P match between Jmcgnh and Heyitstowler. We have
the P is for practice. So both of these folks are, I think, relatively new. I want to say they've both played less than 50 games total, at least on the online client. Maybe they're like experts at IRL.
We've got
what do you think about this game?
Yeah, we got a mix of base set, prosperity, and seaside, and we have a lot of attacks.
Yeah. This kingdom looks painful. So Forge will probably be pretty significant if you can get to it, because you're definitely taking a lot of curses here. Eventually, I think, okay. I'm speaking theoretically here, and I'm not sure this will actually happen in this game. We are in the practice league after all. But like theoretically, saying you're playing this kingdom optimally, I think you eventually actually do get up to a big engine here, despite the horrible attacks, because like there's no incentive to green early. And I think you'll eventually get up to some sort of like King's Court Witch Workers Village engine, and I can deal with any curses and coppers that they come in via Forge. And the long-term goal will be that. Like I'd play a bunch of merchants probably in like a single silver. Something along those lines. King's Court the merchants or the mounted banks for money.
Yeah, and obviously on 5-2 you open mount to bank, I'm pretty sure 100% of the time.
Yes, no question.
On 4-3, JMC did something weird. They opened with a village, which is usually not great, and a merchant, which also doesn't, neither of those cards do anything that first shuffle.
Yeah, I think JMC's opening here is a pretty major and pretty clear error. Almost always, the thing you buy, like turn 1, turn 2, should be something that helps you immediately. Right? You got to think like, all right, after turn 2, I'm reshuffling my deck, and now it's going to have 12 cards in it instead of 10 cards in it. What cards can I add to this deck that like make that 12-card deck I'm about to have as good as possible? And these cards just fail that test. Workers Village and Merchant, like you said, they're not doing anything for you. Merchant doesn't help them because they don't have a silver yet, or didn't at the time. And Workers Village doesn't help them because they didn't have any terminal action cards at the time.
I think I would probably open Silver Moneylender with the goal of getting, mount to bank. Maybe even 2 mount to banks. And then
I agree with that.
Come back to villages after you've got all those terminals in your deck. And once you start playing the mount to bank and your opponent starts playing the mount to bank, you'll be less likely to hit 5 after that.
Yeah, the only other opening I guess is worth thinking about would be like Sea Hag Silver, to try to get, stay even on the curses, and then maybe if the Sea Hag flips their mount to bank, then you're looking pretty happy. Like that'd be a great high roll, is if you discard their mount to bank before they can play it. But I think I agree with Moneylender Silver. Now, comparing and contrasting with what they did, I wouldn't say that like in the abstract, Moneylender and Silver are like better cards in general or in this kingdom than, Merchant and Workers Village. The difference is they're doing stuff for you right now. Like you eventually want, I think, Workers Villages and Merchants a lot, but they're not helping you immediately. Whereas both Silver and Moneylender serve an immediate purpose, which is their money, so they're helping you hit 5. Oftentimes, if the key card in the kingdom is a 5 cost, like Witch or Mounted Bank here, you're just adding like a little bit of economy early to maximize your chance of hitting 5 as soon as possible.
Yeah, and Heyitstowler hit 7 on turn 5, which is pretty nice with their deck. And they elect to get a Forge over a King's Court. I think I like it.
I think so. I don't know the contents of the deck, but it seems pretty plausible. Obviously, in the abstract, King Court's a much stronger card, but you're definitely going to want to get thin here, and that's going to be very difficult to do. So taking the early Forge seems like it might be a good idea.
And if you can get thin first with your Forge and be playing, King's Court on Mounted Bank 2 or 3 times, basically the game's over at that point. Your opponent's deck is all jumped.
Yeah, agreed. Like if one person gets clean sooner, then I think you get this sort of situation that often comes up in ambassador games where like the deck that's already clean can just junk the opponent so fast that they just never get clean. Like if they're getting 6 new junk cards, or even 3 new junk cards by King's Court and Mounted Bank after the curses run out, it's difficult to deal with if your deck's not already under control.
Yeah, and somehow JMC has gotten a Contraband, which is...
How'd that get into their deck?
actually they got a mint on turn 7, and then contraband on turn 6, mint on turn 7. Mint could be quite nice here to get some quick trashing in.
The mint seems pretty fine. Trashing 5 coppers seems like it's generally a good thing to do. Contraband feels awkward. I'd be naming King's Court. Actually, no. Who has the forge? Is it Heyitstowler with the forge?
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, this is hard. I think maybe I would name forge. But in any case, they name King's Court. Again, that's plausible.
In terms of pace, if they can line up that King's Court with a witch, play a Workers' Village, King's Court, a witch, they can get a big, huge turnoff. Whereas forge, really, they're most going to be able to forge, 3 or 4 cards. A little bit sad for Towler.
Either forge or King's Court were reasonable things to name there. The blunder would have been to name a province, which obviously you don't want to buy province this early.
Yeah. Towler bottom deck both the forge and the mountebank, missing the shuffle and colliding. I could believe this is right. I could also believe forging all 4 of those into another mountebank would be correct.
I would have forged them into a new mountebank or perhaps a witch. Not sure which. But yeah, this is not a terrible misplay or anything to play the mountebank instead. Quite reasonable.
And one assumes this will just be more Workers' Villages in these $4 hands. Although I guess you can consider a moneylender once you've got 3 Workers' Villages.
Yeah, I think, at this point in the game, and actually probably most points in the game, I'm not looking to add any other stop cards because I want to just find that forge often and stay thin. And so 3s and 4s are just probably Workers' Villages and merchants.
Yeah. And once you have several terminals, once you have a witch and a mountebank and a forge in your deck, the Workers' Villages are helping you out in various ways. So they're not completely neutral. Those we see here, some of these hands Towler has, for example, it doesn't look great to have a village here as opposed to something else.
Now, something I'm really liking so far is I've noticed the gold pile is at 30, and I'm proud of him for that because that's one of those cards that I feel like people often click on when they shouldn't. And this seems like the sort of kingdom where you really, really, really shouldn't. And so I'm very, very pleased to see that even the newer players have recognized that there's much stronger things to do here than buy golds. Mountebank, Witch, King's Court, Forge, etc. are all much stronger cards.
So now that you say that, they're going to have 7 here, not 6. Okay, if they had,
don't give in. I have faith. I have faith in you.
It's tough though. They don't really need a 3rd forge, do they? I guess this could just be Workers' Village and Merchant, or.
So I assume you name King's Court here. I'd probably take Workers' Village, Merchant. You could consider just a witch or something. 3 forges does seem like too much, but not the worst thing in the world. One benefit here to consider is if your forges collide, you can forge a forge into a King's Court. And so it's not like it's really bad to have an extra forge in your deck or anything.
You also get rid of whatever miscellaneous coppers or curses you have lying around in the hand.
This is true.
And that's what Towler should do here. Trash all 5 and get either a silver. I don't know if they have 1 silver or 2 silvers. You really only need 1 silver in this deck, hopefully.
Yeah, I would take it a merchant. This is still good though. They correctly identify that they should just be trashing their hand.
Yeah, a lot of coppers, 9 coppers in the trash, which means there's 7 curses and 8 coppers and 5 estates floating around. So there's a lot of junk cards, and that will just continue with the mountebanks. The witch actually, stops once the curses have run out, but it's still draw and the best source of draw on this board.
Yeah, witch will actually still not be a bad card in this deck after the pile's empty, because if you're King's Courting other stuff, you're gonna have plenty of actions.
Yeah. Yeah, so we don't like the gold there.
Hey, it's Towler. What? I had so much faith.
Another witch, another mountebank. They haven't hit King's Court yet, so, but they have 4 villages, I think. I guess I like either of those options.
Yeah, just kill this whole hand. Get yourself a witch, probably. Maybe mountebank. I think I'd take a witch here. Want the draw. Nice, I like that.
See what Towler does with 5. It's odd if they'd had, there's this idea that I have 6, I need to buy something that costs 6, right? Yep. I have 8, I need to buy province. I have 6, I need to buy gold. And sometimes you have 8 and you buy herbalist on some kingdoms because that's the best card for your deck because you need that plus buy. So it's one of those that sort of mental traps sometimes you get into is you discount cards that cost less than the amount of money that you have because it seems like you're wasting it.
Yeah, this gold is just looking so awkward in their hand. It's like exactly the wrong price. Like even if it were like a contraband or something, you could at least like forge the contraband and the estate into a King's Court. You can forge those into a province, but like that's not helpful.
I would not be super shocked if we see forge the 3 cards into province at this point.
It's probably the best play for them at this point, honestly. I mean, you get to play your mountebank still, get an attack in. You couldn't afford King's Court anyway, which is the card you really want here. The alternative might just be to like forge mountebank copper and estate into province. Sorry, not in province, into King's Court, and then buy a merchant. Is the other thing I'd be considering.
Yeah, and I guess in the deck that has quite a bit of junk and some King's Courts, it's nice to have, random extra cantrips around like merchant in case, you need a King's Court target.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, you prefer to be King's Courting witch or mountebank, probably, but I guess witch is the thing you want to be King's Courting here because it's really the only effective way to substantially increase your hand size.
I was thinking about it long and hard.
Yeah, there's not really a danger of this game ending that soon. The curse pile is almost empty. The workers' villages are going to empty, but after that, all the other piles are pretty full.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not super worried about piles right now. I don't think it will be a consideration. Like I would be expecting this game to end on piles eventually, but we're not in a point where you're like imminently scrambling for points or anything like that.
The consideration I would have given last turn was that there's only 1 curse left, and I'd much rather give it out than receive it, which would probably let me play my mountebank last turn and then forge into province just because that's what thins out the deck.
Yep, that's fair, but I think this is like getting a King's Court in your deck is obviously very good as well.
Yeah.
Here I would not play this King's Court. I would just forge everything else into like a witch or something.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because if you King's Court the forge, you will play it 3 times. And something I think people might not recognize is you trash any number of cards from your hand. Even if that number was 0, like if you played the forge and trashed 0, you still gain a card costing equal to the total in money that you trashed, which would, if you trash 0, be a copper or a curse. So like if you King's Court the forge, you get to trash it all the first forge play, and then your forge trashes nothing twice, and then you gain 2 coppers, which obviously you don't want to do.
And hopefully they would allow an undo when you realize that effect happened.
Yeah, I think like undoing if you just like misunderstood like the text of a card or like a rules interaction is a pretty classic case of like a legitimate undo. You don't want to like lose for just like not understanding the rules of the game or something.
Someone in a recorded match the other day, I think it was an E-League match yesterday, stonemasoned and tried to overpay 0 for peddlers, and they clicked stonemason and their turn ended because there was nothing they could overpay for, and it took them about 15 seconds to realize, and by then their opponent had already played 4 or 5 cards.
Yeah, that's one of those ones where it's not totally obvious, like what counts as like overpaying, just from the text of the card, where you might not know that overpay, you have to overpay at least 1.
What is JMC doing with a mint?
That's a good question. Why did they gain a mint there? I don't understand that one.
I generally would think in kingdoms without platinum, you're almost never buying mint to gain a treasure. In very, very rare circumstances, but
crown perhaps. But yeah, I don't know what you're minting here. There's no treasures I want here, except like a singular silver. Oh, counterfeiting magic lamp just sounds so sad.
Is it not?
They thought like if the card is trashed by any means, it activates.
Crown on magic. Oh, what is it? Crown on the magic lamp is not the trashed one. That's haunted mirror.
Yeah, haunted mirror is like if you trash it and discard an action card, you get the ghost.
Yeah, magic lamp is the 6 uniques.
Yeah,
and I have seen crown magic lamp work. Similar to like
magic, you get the wishes the first time. You won't get like double the wishes.
Yeah, as opposed to throne leprechaun, where you do get double wishes.
Correct.
So this is,
and the operative difference there is the like trash this if you do clause.
Yeah,
you're playing the thing twice, but you only trashed it once, and so you only get the part that has the if you do clause once.
So we're kind of seeing here the effect of all of the golds, the silvers, the extra forges and mints. That it's just really tough to line up and find a good turn. Now maybe
mint plus capital is a relevant point. You could mint mountebanks and get new mountebanks. That would be an example of mint being stronger than average.
Yeah, but it requires very special events or kingdom cards.
The point stands that mint's effect for $5 is pretty terrible 95% of the time. And the main reason you're getting mint is for the ability to trash your cards, not because you want a mint in your deck.
Yeah. And I said platinum, it's more likely to be irrelevant with platinum just because platinum is worth substantially more than gold.
Yeah. I like the choice to forge into King's Court there. So I really disliked their opening, and so I was more pessimistic about the direction this game was going to go. But I think since the open, we're seeing the decks more or less go in the right directions. You know, you're getting to King's Court, you're playing some like Workers Village Witch type engine. We have some hiccups here and there, like a gold has been gained and a mint unnecessarily. But like broadly speaking, decks they've got the right idea to them.
I think, you know, if I was playing this kingdom, I would have added a second mountebank very early and then junked my opponent into such that they could not put the deck together. But since both of them didn't hammer the mountebanks particularly hard, that didn't end up mattering.
Yeah, I think that was the right forge choice for Heyitstowler there. Silver states into a King's Court.
I think I want to King's Court the Witch there.
Let me go back and look at their hand. Yeah, I would play the Workers Village in King's Court the Witch.
You're drawing 3 extra cards here, and you have you assume you'll find other Workers Villages.
I mean, maybe they just like if you knew the order of their deck, then this might have worked out well because they had a bunch of more terminals coming up, and enough draw anyway. Obviously, they didn't have a way of knowing those Workers Villages were on the bottom. It seems that they managed to have chosen the choice that ended up being better, if not necessarily.
So they can get like completely clean here, and then they need to figure out how they're going to generate money starting next turn. I would say
I don't like the choice to play the mint. I guess it's fine.
I think they're going to be
I was
thin enough, and maybe they'll actually get to mint some of those away, or they could mint.
I was thinking of turning the mint into a mountebank because you can kingsport mountebank for a whole lot of money, and also the attack is still relevant because your opponent's not as clean. An alternative they could do here. They've also messed up on this. I don't think they fully thought this through. I thought that the two plausible plays that struck me as things worth doing would be one, turn the mint into a mountebank and then draw it with your workers village and play it, or two, turn the second forge into a king's court, and then you can draw that and king's court your merchant for 3 coins instead of 1. They've done neither of those.
They could have still turned Forge Copper Curse into King's Court and then bought a mountebank with the 5 remaining money that they had.
The King's Court on the same turn. The benefit of the order a second ago is you get to play that King's Court this turn on your merchant and get some extra money out of it.
That I did not understand, though, why they gained a Forge.
I am. Now I'm really lost. I'm very confused now.
I think you just want tons of King's Courts, and then you play King's Court, and triple play merchants.
They just gained back into a King's Court if they want to, which they should. Do it.
Yep, I agree.
Oh, no, they just want more forges.
Because now you only want 1 forge left in your deck, right? There's not really stuff for you to forge. You want to be triple playing mountebanks for money, probably.
Buy nothing? Wait, why didn't they buy a merchant?
I think they thought they only had 2. They didn't realize they were getting +1 from merchant in play.
Oh, that's not the right buy. Okay.
So if you put King's Court on merchant, you get 3 coins when you play a silver.
Yeah.
And their deck is thin enough; they should be able to reliably play King's Court and merchant. Honestly, they could start to do things like Forge Witch into mountebank for money. The draw is not going to be as necessary with their deck as clean as it is.
Yeah. This is an unfortunate draw from them.
If both those forges were King's Court,
I was gonna say this is kind of their fault. Like if that silver had been a merchant, like it should have been, and this forge had been a King's Court, like it should have been, they wouldn't have a dud here, because you could King's Court the merchant and then play the witch. But yeah, with King's Court especially, you really want, I think, virtual payload over treasures. So like merchant and mountebank start to look really appealing compared to like golds and silvers and stuff, because with your spare King's Court plays, which you'll probably have some, you can King's Court those to like triple their money. Whereas you can't King's Court the gold.
Given that JMC seems ahead, their deck is thinner and cleaner. If they could King's Court mountebank, that also gives your opponent 3 coppers, which makes it harder for them to get cleaner and catch up.
The fact that Heyitstowler is buying gold is not a good sign to me. I was saying their deck was going in the right direction, but perhaps it is not. If they think gold is a card worth getting here, then they've been led astray.
And again, JMC passed up a chance to forge a forge into a King's Court, which I guess makes sense given their previous line. But this is the kind of kingdom where I just want all the, want 1 forge left in my deck and 5 King's Courts if I can.
Yeah, like here I'm torn between silver into merchant and forge into King's Court. Probably the latter is better.
Yeah, although Towler doesn't have a mountebank anymore, right? They trashed it.
It's a good question.
Yeah, they trashed it to get the. So they need to make sure. I think they have a couple more silvers though in their deck. 4 from looking at the trash.
Is your concern with them running out of money?
That may be a concern that they have.
Unfortunately, they have a bunch of golds down there, so they have enough to like buy economy back up if they need.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that golds were in the deck.
Yeah, Easy mistake to make because one would not expect golds to be in that deck.
So we can forge the mint into Mountebank and probably play it this turn.
Yeah.
That's the best way to add payload.
Oh, no. There it went. I was just about to say, an important thing to be thinking about here is Jmcgnh is you've done step one, right? They've got their deck under control. It's always the first step of any game. And now it took 21 turns, but I think that's kind of this kingdom's fault. This is a kingdom where it's going to take forever to get deck control. Step two, I think, now you're trying to get as much value out of that deck as possible. And the thing you're really looking to do once you can draw your deck is you want to gain and play stuff on the same turn. Oftentimes you want the ability to overdraw your deck and then gain stuff, put it back into your deck, and then replay it. And you get that sort of chain effect, like compound interest of sorts. And your deck will escalate from here much, much faster if you're effectively doing things the same turn, rather than like buy stuff and wait till next turn for it to pay off. And so things I'd be looking for here would be, for example, forging a forge into a King's Court and then redrawing it so I can play it the same turn, and then immediately get that benefit. And they're not really taking advantage of those sorts of interactions. We're seeing them just like leave the forges in hand and then buy a thing.
And when you think about gain and play, the card that most enables that is King's Court, because of the tripling effect.
So what's going on here? They undid the province gain, I think?
They only have 7 money left if they gain a province. Maybe is what they're thinking.
Where's 7 money come from? If they do
3 coppers and 1 merchant. 3 silvers and 1 merchant is 7.
You're right. I'm just failing basic math here. Yeah, I can't add either. I don't particularly want province here, though, do I? Are piles that low? Piles aren't that low. Why did they... I'm a little lost. They trashed a silver to gain a silver and then redrew the silver.
I assume they didn't want to...
No, stop!
I assume they didn't want to undo back and they figured it didn't matter.
Oh, I see. You're saying like they only undid back to like they'd already played their forge, and so now they have to forge something.
It's easier. It's easier to do than to undo. So Teller's almost drawing deck. Unfortunately, their forge is at the bottom. Otherwise, they could get a nice forge off. The other thing about golds here is you can't forge golds really into anything productive. Like silver plus Mountebank can become a province at the end of the game.
Yeah, just like everything about gold is really bad. I'm really sad. Like JMC was going the right direction, and now they're going the wrong direction again.
Gold like those 2 golds were Mountebanks, you could King's Court the Mountebank.
Yeah. It is the kind of thing that you should do. King's Court is very strong. Like very, very, very strong.
Yeah, that's when the decks can explode, and if you're playing things like Mountebanks, the coppers run out very quickly.
All right. So do we have a win here as JMC? I'd certainly be looking at the possibility of
short forges. I think 1 gain. Oh no.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
So if you play the King's Court on the King's Court, you get to triple 3 actions, and as long as one of those 3 actions is a non-terminal, so you could draw the Workers' Village and then play your second King's Court play on the Workers' Village, and then play your third King's Court play on a Merchant, for example, and then your turn gets to go on. So
yeah, like that was not a dud hand. That was actually a beautiful starting hand. King's Court, and a draw card is like exactly what you want to have in the start of your turn. They just didn't seem aware that you can use the King's Court on the King's Court.
And people who are newer to the game, that the throne interaction is the most, I think, confusing to a lot of people.
I think it's probably the highest level decision-making aspect of the base set games. Like I think Throne Room is probably the single most like high skill level card in base, and using like multiples of thrones effectively is like the last thing you would learn to get good at just playing base set games.
And honestly, like years went by before people considered Throne Room to be a village. They said, "Oh, you can't build an engine here because there's no village." It's like, no, we have throne rooms. And 5 years ago, people would have said, "Well, there's no way to get a village effect here." And now we all know, no, there's throne room. We can do stuff with throne room. We can make it work with throne room as the village.
5 years ago, that is before my time. But yeah, Throne Room is the strongest village in the base set.
Yeah, it is mostly before my time too. But reading old articles and stuff, it sort of people realizing that throne room was this incredibly powerful card, and King's Court obviously even more powerful than throne room.
I don't. Is JMC correct about this? I don't think Heyitstowler's deck is particularly better. Like it's got more golds in it, which seems like a negative to me.
It's a witch. I guess once more draw.
Village OP.
And I know a lot of people who play IRL are playing 3-4 player games. And like in a 4-player game, if you have base set, you have one stack of villages. It's not the most exciting. You can't build the most exciting engines when everyone gets 2 to 3 villages apiece.
Yep.
And those games tend to end, I guess, on piles or on, weird games. And like, I'm pretty sure the first time I saw someone play Throne on a Throne in real life, another person challenged them and said, "You can't do that." Like, how would that work? You're like, well, you read the direction on the cards. First, I play this action twice. Now I'm going to play these other 2 actions twice. All right.
So yeah, you can empty King's Courts, which now might be easier because King's Court's at 3. Potentially even easier to pile out though is the Forge pile, because
actually,
if you forge,
Towler has it in hand here.
Use those to reforge.
If they didn't play that Workers Village, they could King's Court, Workers Forge, Workers Village Silver 3 times into King's Court and then buy a province and win.
Oh yeah, sure enough.
I think they
still have to win, right? Because how much money do they
King's
have?
Court Forge. Yeah, they just forge.
So you do like Workers Village Silver, then Witch Merchant into province, and then
buy King's Court.
Yeah,
you've got plenty of money for that. You can even do Witch into Duchy and buy a king. There's a couple different ways you could do it.
Yeah, this is still a pretty easy win. Like they're overshooting it pretty substantially. We'll see if they see it though.
It's a bit tricky to see. King's Court's an expensive pile. You often don't look for the expensive pile outs.
Well, so there's also another pile out here. You could also just King's Court the Merchant and play your Workers Village 2 more times and buy the estates.
7, 13, 16. Yep. Math checks out.
I'm pretty sure you could also do 8 merchants in an estate. Let's see. Suppose you King's Court Forge and trash 2 silvers and a merchant into 3 merchants. Then you would need to have 17 money, and you would end up having 9, 11, 12. Maybe that one's a little bit short. I'm not sure. I'd have to count up the merchant plus an estate pile out closer. In any case, there's a number of piles here. They are forging weird things. I don't understand any of these decisions at all. They turn their merchant into silver, which is just a downgrade. They turned their witch into witch. Okay, so they found a wind anyway. They're going for the witch pile out. Interesting. Okay. But yeah, that's yet another pile out. Okay. I'll buy.
Wow. So there were at least 3 or 4 different pile outs there. They found one.
Yeah, they were looking at the witches.
Nicely done. The King's Court one I think was the easiest, just because they had 4 costs and 3 costs. It was easy to forge them, but they found one that involved more treasures.
I thought that was JMC's game to lose. I mean, I'm sure it was JMC's game to lose it at like flashback 2 or 3 turns. I think they were a little bit too cavalier with the piles there. I think they lowered stuff without scoring. And then also, I think they got to deck control much sooner than Heyitstowler. But then they very much pivoted the wrong direction. This move to like start adding treasures, I think, was a very bad one. I think what you want to be moving towards is adding like mountebank and merchants for your payload, and then you've got a lot more flexibility.
Yeah, and I think they missed the King's Court on King's Court interaction. Next time when they know that, they'll be able to have a big turn there themselves.
Yeah, they did lose a whole turn to that mistake.
Yeah. All right. First game to Heyitstowler. We'll move on to game 2.